Yeah. Yeah. We're both we just started our first semester at Naropa. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Mm-mm.
We're doing the online type of schooling, but we are going in person in 2 weeks. So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
What state is that?
it's in Colorado, Boulder,
Okay.
Colorado.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We're really excited to ask you some questions.
Okay. I hope I can
Awesome.
I'll try. Yeah.
So the first one, if you could just tell us about yourself and a little bit about your private practice.
So I work mostly with kids and families mostly. Um, since I've been in private practice right before it started, I started private practice right before COVID. Like literally, like no, I think it was like November, and then everything shut down like a few months after that. Yeah, so it was
Good, good
interesting.
timing.
Now since then, I have 2 offices and I'm here in Connecticut. So it's been interesting. I do a lot of online and telehealth. There's a lot of telehealth, but still because it's just more convenient for most people, but
Right.
um with their life schedules and stuff like that. So it really helps out to have both. Having telehealth and in person is really the best mixture for I think pretty much everybody right now. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
understand that.
Mhm.
Um, so we're going to alternate back and forth, and
Okay.
we'll try to keep be wise of your time here. The next question is, why did you decide to go into counseling?
Um, well, it's kind of a long story. I don't want so I guess I mean really honestly, I think it's been like all of my life. I've kind of been in counseling, or been like helping out friends or people. I grew up in a house with my mother was always my mom was that mom that everybody was at our house. There was always someone living in our house, which kind of sounds weird, but there was always someone there that didn't wasn't a part of our house. I remember this one friend, and I spoke to her a few years ago, and she remembers this that when I met her in the school bathroom, and she was upset, and I was like, well, you can just come to our house, and I mean that was just like pretty much what everybody did. Like people needed a break
Mm,
from, they just came to our house and yeah, so and
mhm.
then later on, I didn't really say I wanted to be a therapist necessarily, which is weird. I never really actually had that goal for myself. But then I was going to school for communications and I was an intern at Channel 3 News, and people were calling in with all these problems and nobody was responding because, and then like it was like the main thing for that was to go out. You the main thing like at the news desk is you're waiting for something like a big incident to happen almost like like oh my gosh, and I
Mhm.
remember like there was an incident and I was like, oh okay, so I get to go out, because it was so boring just kind of sitting there. And then a lot of these people that were calling, their stories weren't being told on the news. It wasn't important enough to them. And so, and I'm not trying to call out that news station or anything, but I'm just saying, like, in general, that's how the news works.
Sure.
You're waiting for someone to be shot, basically, and that's the big story. And
Yeah.
and so I was like, well, all these people need help, and I was taking a lot of like psychology classes. So I'm like, maybe I should major in psychology.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I can't. Then I start working with kids at a group home, and I'm like, these kids are not getting any help. But I was like, no way, I don't want to be a therapist though, because the therapists aren't even helping these kids. So I don't want to do that. I want to do prevention work. So I went to school and I got my master's in psychology to try to prevent stuff. But then I realized that this country doesn't really care about prevention. They don't really want to pay people to prevent things from happening. So I went back to school to get licensed to be a therapist so that, and I try to build prevention work into my practice. So
Mm.
I'm trying to help prevent, a lot of times I'm still putting out fires, unfortunately, because a lot of people come to therapy after something has happened. But I try to encourage people, like, even if we fix a problem, like, you can come back, right? Or we can just meet once a month. You know what I mean? Like, and then
Yeah.
if they're little kids, maybe it's better just to keep it a long term, especially if they're being adopted or something. Like, there's ways to put prevention into being a therapist.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I try to work around that, around what I can, because
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So,
love that. What would you say you love most about your job?
um, I like working with people, so I like people. I like hearing people's stories, and I think it's important for people to have somebody to hear their story.
Mm.
And so I think we have a very important job to do. It's good for people to have somebody outside of their circle to talk to sometimes, no matter, I mean, and it doesn't have to be anything wrong with you to do that. So I think that's the
Yeah.
important thing to tell people, you know.
What is the most challenging part of being a counselor?
Oh, sometimes I would say it's not so much now. Like being in private practice, it's a little different. Um, when working for like an agency, that is very challenging. I felt like that was starting to take a toll on me, um, because you kind of have to have a certain amount of clients, and people become numbers, and businesses like that a lot of times, and it's not it's hard to enjoy your job. But I feel like now I don't have that stress, you know,
Mm-hmm.
of having like, I have to, I see people who are good fits for me, and it's my own schedule and all of that.
That's very nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot better.
Have you ever,
It's stressful hearing some people's stories though. Sometimes, you have to take care of yourself. It's a lot sometimes, trauma and stuff like that. But yeah.
yeah, speaking of trauma, that's my next question is, have you ever experienced vicarious trauma? And if so, how did you mitigate that?
I don't think I had vicarious. I did have one incident where I think this is probably the worst incident. I did have a child pass away when
Mm.
I was working with the family, and he wasn't my client, but the mother was. So
Mm.
that was that was hard, and I was in my beginning stages of being a therapist, so but I was working with a group at that time that was very supportive. So I think having coworkers um to help make sure you're okay, because that was a lot to go. I was doing it home at the time too, so I had to go back to the house. I went to the
Mm.
funeral,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was really hard, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, on a little lighter topic, what is it like starting a private practice?
It actually wasn't. I don't know if my experience might be different than others just because of the timing that I had started mine. I think it was I was scared at first. I think the best I would advise anybody that's going to do it to keep another job in the beginning, just because
Mm.
you're just getting to know um, how to do things. Wait, the question was how hard it was, right? Was it hard
Um,
or
what
uh,
is it like starting a
was
private
or
practice?
I mean it was so I mean finding a location um because that kind of came like a happy stance for me. Somebody just happened to have, and I was like, sure, why not? And then because of COVID, I really didn't have to promote myself so much because everybody needed therapy. So at first it was like, oh, I only have one client, but I was still working another job. So it's good to have another job
Mhm.
while you're starting up. But then everybody, I mean, it was just like we were just at our computers for a year.
Yeah, I
Talking
can
to people.
imagine.
I get up in the morning, get coffee, and sit, and it was just nonstop. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
a lot. Yeah, but I think it's hard to find out. I don't know how it is for you guys over there, but like the billing and stuff like that, because they don't teach you that stuff in school.
Mm.
That's the struggle. Like, but I was really lucky. The lady who I sublease, I'm still with her now. I sublease one of my spaces through her. And she sat down with me one afternoon and just showed me like some of the billing stuff because I had no idea what to do.
I
Yeah.
So,
haven't even thought of that. Yeah, that's so helpful to have
yeah,
some.
it's important to find some other people that are in the field that are helpful.
Yeah.
Like right now, I have a group, we have a group chat that I'm a part of, and we text each other like different questions or we refer clients to each other, So
Mhm.
it's important to have, if you're in private practice, to have something like that so
Mhm.
you can talk to other people because otherwise you're just kind of by yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
You need to have friends. Yeah.
What is My next question is, what is the job market like in your area for a private practice specifically?
I think everybody there's a lot of since the new year I've gotten a lot of calls, so I think
Mm.
it's good right now. Unfortunately, right? Because that
Right.
means people are having a lot of problems. So I,
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot. I think there's a need. There's
Mhm.
actually a huge need, even though I think we have quite a few therapists though, but there's still a need because a lot of people are booked. Sometimes I have people call and they're like, "Oh, I called all these other people and nobody answered or nobody called me back." That I
Mhm.
hear that a lot.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I think there's a need.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, good and bad.
Good and bad, right? Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. Um, what differences do you see in the helping professions out in the real world? So, for example, like social workers, psychologists, counselors, what differences do you see in these out in the real world?
Hmm. The difference between like what they do.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, because I know in our program we're taught the differences, and so I just wondered how they played out in the real world.
I think a lot of times we have a lot of similarities about what we do, um, especially like social workers. I feel like we kind of do the same thing in a sense, but sometimes they know more they might have more information about resources
Mhm.
sometimes, or something like that kind of thing. But because they might not, maybe they didn't have as much schooling and like the actual therapy part, but they have more schooling and like resources or but I try to make that a part of my work though, to find resources for people, too, like social workers do. Um, I mean, I know like APRNs, I know just from hearing from people. Um, APRNs actually they're a little bit better, but like a psychiatrist, like sometimes I've heard, people feel like they're being just kind of pushed in and out. Like
Okay.
Mm,
there's not a real conversation with that person.
Sure.
mm,
Um, so that and psychologists, I mostly only talk to school psychologists. So it's and
Okay.
they do spend the time. I think it's the time that people are spending that comes up a lot. Or they
Okay.
don't really know you. It's just kind of like, here, fill out this form,
mhm,
the thing, especially with the med management. That's
mm.
something that comes up a lot. But we
Okay.
do have some good ones out there that will communicate with providers like me. So that, is really helpful. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you do you see clients back to back, or do you usually have a little bit of a buffer?
um, I like to just, I like to do back to back a lot of times. Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
I think it's probably good. Um, I think most therapists do it that way.
Mhm,
Um, just it keeps the day going. It's good to have like a little break, but I usually do like back to back stuff. If you schedule it properly, you can have a 4-day work week, and have Fridays off. So a lot
okay.
of people do that, um, or at least have that day for paperwork and stuff.
Mhm.
Is smart to figure out a day where you're not working the whole day or something, because it can be a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine.
How do you navigate through your most challenging sessions?
Oh boy, what's it challenging? Well, we try. Yeah. Knock on wood, I haven't had, they're not too bad right now. Um, yeah. It- you just try to help people to find, I think sometimes people want to hear a solution, but sometimes you need to let them, you know, vet or, you know, I think the most challenging ones are when you're working with a couple
Mhm,
or something like that. That's probably, and that, sometimes they have to not meet together, like,
mm,
and the, at the time because, yeah, those are probably, or I mean, I would say like the most, I mean, because now I'm like thinking about it, like one of my most challenging situations, it's like, I mean, the police have had to be called. I mean, it's like,
Oof.
sometimes it can be, dangerous situations. I think those
mhm.
are
Wow.
probably the toughest, but knock on wood. I haven't had that in a minute. I don't want to have to call the police. Oh my goodness. But
Yeah.
yeah. uh, yeah.
That's good.
And in some situations. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, and you mentioned this before, but if you could elaborate, it sounds like having colleagues for feedback and questions is really
Yep.
important to like have.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. That's the
Okay.
best thing to do. You have to stay in contact with people.
Mhm.
Yeah, because
How,
are you guys thinking about private practice?
yeah, I
Yeah.
Yep.
am.
Yeah,
Are you,
you definitely
Sophia?
need
Yeah.
Yep.
you need a group of other therapists, or at least one person that you can kind of, talk to sometimes, because there's things that come up and they might know the answer that you didn't know, or yeah. So it's really helpful
Mhm.
That's good. Yeah.
to have that.
Okay, this one's kind of more technical, but we were curious how HIPAA guidelines are used in therapy.
Hmm. What do you mean? I mean, everything's confidential. So yeah,
Okay.
I feel like we're more secretive than anybody.
Yeah, so if you were to
I agree. Yeah,
just follow up on that, if you
unless
were to,
they're unless people are being harmed.
right.
Yeah, especially minors, and then seniors,
Yeah.
older. Yeah, so yeah. But with that, like I always I'm honest with people. Like if I have to call, and that again, knock on wood, I have not had to call in a minute. But if I have to call the child services, like I
Mm,
always tell people, because one of the things, it's interesting because people always know that it was you anyway. So why would you keep it a secret? Like that's how I see it. It's like I
right.
don't need to be, they already know. So it's better to tell people that you're calling. But if you feel like there's I was in a situation where it was a safety concern. I couldn't tell them. Um,
Mm,
but I did tell I don't think I don't remember if we actually did tell that lady, because it was such a safety concern, um,
mm,
for her to know. I could not tell her in person. Um, but I've had a couple where I've had to tell them over the phone because I didn't want to do it in person because it's scary. Um, but usually I just tell people, like, look, this is what I have to call, and
mhm.
I'll be there for you. I can be there at the meeting when they come. Like, we try to make it that kind of conversation versus I'm calling on you, and
Mhm.
because that way you can still be helpful,
Right.
you know, because
That makes,
usually they just need help. So yeah,
yeah.
it's not like a situation where a kid has to be removed. It's just like you need a little support here. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, Sophia, we are at time. I don't want to keep her too long. Should we wrap it up or?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's been half an hour and I didn't want to keep your time too long. We have like a whole bunch of questions, but
Wow. Oh, you can ask if you have anything else. Do you need to ask me? Or you're good? It's up to
We
you.
can ask maybe one more each.
Okay.
okay. Okay.
My question is about your internship. Where was your internship and what did that whole process?
Oh, so internships are interesting. Um, I went to, where did I do mine? I did one at the sexual assault crisis. We have, I don't know if you guys have it there. It's through the YWCA, and
Mhm.
it's an on call. So I I was on call, and I go to hospital visits when people were sexually assaulted and support them through the process. And it was extremely, I learned a lot. And I had to go through a full training before I could even do it. It was very intense. And I would go to hospital and phone calls. So if somebody called, you talk to them. Um, yeah, so I did that, and I did a group through them too. I think we did a group, and then before that, I did an internship at the children's home where I ended up working there too. But yeah, so I mean, find a spot. They always need help. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone needs someone to help them out.
Yes, that's
The
true.
one thing that's wrong with our, like here in Connecticut, I can't have an intern help me out.
Oh,
So yeah, and somebody did email me the other day asking, but I think she can do different things. Like they can't see clients through me. So if they're looking for clinical hours, I can't do that through
Okay,
my private practice.
yeah, I was
right.
gonna say, is it because you have a private practice?
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
they have to be at a clinic to get
okay.
clinical hours. But if she just wants to do an internship and not, I don't think she's a therapist. She's a psychology major, so she might be able to work with me. But I might be able to find other things for her to do, but she can't, you know, see clients.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess the last question we'll ask is about if you find yourself therapizing with friends and family.
Oh, no. Probably a little bit on the side.
Yeah,
I
it
think
kind of
especially when
becomes a habit, maybe.
no, I mean, because I feel like I'm more of a listener when it comes to that, anyways. Sort of.
Right.
Yeah. I think so. I don't think it's me. I think it's them. I have a lot of friends who will say, "Well, you're a therapist," so it's like, why? Don't ask me. Stop. Like I'll listen. If you want advice, I'll give it. Right, but I'm not
Right. They have to ask for it.
right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Well,
That's
Candace, it was really nice meeting you.
too.
Thank you so much for doing this interview. We'll make sure we send you the recording.
Oh,
And
cool. Yeah.
yeah,
Are
and it
you
was
okay
very
if I
helpful.
use are you okay if I use some of it on my social media? If there's some that's
Yes.
good?
absolutely.
We've been,
Yeah.
I try to do, yeah, because 'cause I'm actually, what do you call it? I do a lot of community work. So to help out with other things in the community too, so, yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Send us your social media. We'd love to
Okay.
stay connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Nice
you so
meeting you guys. I wanna get over there to Colorado one day.
Please do. Actually, Brooke is on the East Coast, right?
Oh,
Yes, I
wait.
am. I'm in
Oh,
the DC area.
oh,
So
okay.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I go
Yeah.
down there a lot. My aunt's there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. We go out that way. It's not too far.
Cool.
It's like 6
Yeah.
hours from me, I think. Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
well, Candace, have a good night. Again, thank you so much.
Yeah, just send me an email. I guess you can send it like an email, right? That's probably the best.
I think so. Yeah. Brooke is a little more tech savvy than me.
We'll see how big it is. I may have to upload it to like a Google Drive or something like that, but we'll get it to you for sure.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
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 Bye. I'm still there. What am I doing? Oh, hi. Oh, you're